YouTube and Twitch because we're doing this live. This is a build guide for a low-life Righteous Fire Ascendant, utilizing Guardian and Chieftain. We'll go ahead and run a quick shape run. This is actually the Spider Queen. Those of you that know Spider, she's my AFK tank character. I respec her into low-life RF, basically just took off all of my low-life RF characters' gear, and the skill tree is slightly different, and then we have different ascendancies, but other than that, it's basically just low-life RF Guardian. Pretty good. Path of Building says we have 1.5 mil plus DPS on this version versus the 1 mil DPS on the Guardian version, so it does more damage and has a little bit less regen. Just kind of preference with the ascendancies that I chose. You could go for pure glass cannon DPS, I think, if you went with like Berserker Trickster or some or Berserker. No, you can't do Berserker Chieftain. I don't know. There's a lot of ascendancy options you can choose. We'll talk through those later. I just ended up settling on these two for a mixture of survivability and DPS. But yeah, it's pretty good. Been running Guardians with it all day today, running Uber Elder a couple times, trying to get that last memory fragment still so I can, or sorry, normal Elder, so I can get Uber Elder to spawn. Can't get my last T15 one. But yeah, you just kind of stay in there and burn them down. Whoa. Lag. Servers have been a little iffy today. A little bit. But yeah, I use my Arbo Storms to proc at Equilibrium, and then I just curse them as well with it. It gives flammability. And then I'm using a Despair Flask, so I have 2 curses. Wearing a 6-link Shavs, Presence of Chayula, Doriani's Catalyst, and then the rest of my gear is rares. It's a pretty straightforward build, honestly. I always forget to mention bandits, I guess I'll do that now. For the majority of my builds, you just kill all. Every single time, just kill all. It's always in the pace bin as well of the Path of Building, which will be linked in the description of this video for those of you watching on YouTube. Burn, baby, burn. If I don't use Flask, it's a lot slower. Wait, why'd she say that twice? Did I get anything useful out of this? Nope. Wait, maybe. Maybe that's good. I don't know the new voice lines yet. It's like they're different from what they were before, and I don't really recognize the correct time to attack. It's pretty weird. As you can tell, I'm very respectful of Shaper's mechanics. Just like, don't even worry about it. There, I'm taking a degen and the beam at the same time. It's fine. If you look at the max reses, 83, 80, 80. And then I think max regen's like 7.2k or something with the Guardian spike. It's pretty solid. It's usually like, what, 2.3-ish? And that doesn't include my belt mod, which has the Shaper 20% ES recovery suffix. So that's a 1.2 multiplier to that, which would, no, there's almost a 9k proc. Jesus. I don't know how high my regen goes anymore. It's decent. I'll just leave it open so you can stare at it. It's fine. I am block capped due to the fact that I'm using a Legacy Roomies. If you don't have a Legacy Roomies, if you used a regular one, you would probably have around, what would that be, 25 from your shield, and then you'd get an additional 20-ish from your flask, maybe more than that, 25. So you probably have about 50% block, which is still really good. If you want more, you can just prioritize a little bit more on the tree. It's up to you. This eventually will be the character for Grandmasters, but not as low life RF. It'll be my AFK tank build. I'm just doing this to level up. The skill trees are very similar, honestly. They're like maybe 20 points different. You just pick up low life stuff and aura effect and aura reservation. Otherwise, it's about the same character. And the jewels are different. I'm not stacking recklesses. I'm wearing rare jewels. You could also get a Watcher's Eye for this character with ES Recovery with Discipline, ES Regen with Discipline, and ES or mana from Clarity as flat ES, something like that. That would give you a ridiculous amount of extra ES. But like, it's pretty hard to get those mods. That triple stat Watcher's Eye would probably cost you thousands of exalts. Oh, that hurts. Thousands. Because it's probably never going to drop, let's be honest. A 2 stat would be good, but even if you just had ES recovery while affected by discipline, like that's another more multiplier. It's the same thing as your Shaper suffix on your belt. It's another huge more multiplier. I should talk about RF though. Mechanically, RF scales off your life total and your ES total, right? It also scales off of fire damage, area damage, damage over time, elemental damage, generic damage, and burning damage. And then of course if you reduce the enemy's resistances, such as with Equilibrium from our Orb of Storms, and then curses such as Despair, Flammability, Elemental Weakness, those all scale the damage. And then of course the Chieftain debuff, Covered in Ash, gives them 20% increased fire damage taken, which is another 20% more multiplier to our overall damage. It's quite a lot of DPS scaling. Righteous Fire is not a spell, it does not hit, it cannot penetrate resistances. What else is there that I need to say about that? You can't leech off of it because it's a degen. Degens don't hit. You can't apply on hit effects. Righteous Fire does not apply Equilibrium because it is a degen. I think that's all the frequently asked questions about RF. But yeah, generally I apply E with a little bit of cold damage on a ring, and then Orb of Storm's lightning damage as well. Why? Oh, that sound effect's weird. Here, let's do the dance. For those of you that don't know, if you ever get a ball following you in this phase, just run in a circle. And you can dance around it and it won't kill you. Or proc, and then you can just, when the phase is done, put it somewhere else. Simple. Shaper mechanics. Mechanics? Pentonics? I don't know. Wow! I-86 Shaped Hubris, that's actually really good. Well, there's your Shaper run. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about the character. We'll start with the Ascendancies. I already mentioned Bandits, it's just kill all. But the Ascendancies, you have a lot of options. Since I'm playing this more for survivability and, I guess, decent single target, I went for Guardian, which gives you a bunch of Phys mitigation, reduced effective curses, so you take less damage from like Vuln and Ellie Weak, whatever. And then every 5 seconds you get 20% of max life regenerated over 1 second, so it's a huge burst regen, which it averages out to about 4% more life regen, which is really good. You also have Conduit if you're running with a party, great. And then I took the Start Allocate Passes from Templar starting point, which saves us 3 skill points here, and it gives us 2 additional skill points, which is huge. And then I went for Chieftain. It gives you life regen, it gives you some strength, it gives you 10% chance to cover rare or unique enemies in Ash for 10 seconds on hit, which translates into 20% more damage, which is pretty good. Other options, you could go for Inquisitor, gets elemental immunity while affected by Consecrated Ground or whatever. Here, I'll show you in Path of Building so we can actually see what I'm talking about. The Inquisitor gets that, yeah, you get 10% chance to create Consecrated Ground when you hit a rare unique for 8 seconds, and you're immune to elemental ailments while on Consecrated Ground. You also get, I believe it's 4% life regen while that, and then you get nearby enemies take 10% increased Ellie damage. That is a more multiplier as well. Other options, if you want to be like extra curse and more ES regen, you can take a Cultist. If you don't have a Presence of Chayula amulet for the stun immunity, you could take this for the stun immunity, and you get an extra curse effect, ES regen, everything you want. Other things, let's see. Trickster is really good as well. You can get Frenzy Power Charges on kill, which gives you more damage, attack speed, cast speed, and crit chance. And you get 50% increased recovery rate if you've killed an enemy affected by dot recently, which is everything you kill with RF. That's huge. That's 50% more regen for you. Cannot be stunned if you haven't hit recently, and 15 flat mana regen is pretty good. Since we don't hit with RF, the 15% chance to gain on chaos on hits does nothing. After that, there's really not much else. You could, I guess you could kind of do like Gladiator if you want to go block base or something, but those are your options. I went with these two. As for the skill tree, we do a lot of life regen and a lot of ES, right? So the keystones we'll talk about. We have Elemental Equilibrium. Enemies you hit get 25% resistance to those elements and minus 50 to other elements. As I said earlier, we hit with Orb of Storms for lightning resist, and they get negative fire res. We hit with our shield charge, which has cold damage. They get cold resist and negative 50% fire res either way. So that's a huge damage multiplier. We have Ellie Overload. If we crit in the past 8 seconds, you get 40% more elemental damage. I have an Orbital Storm's increased crit setup, which gives us that all the time, and then while shield charging through packs, you generally have up all the time as well. And then after that we take Zealot's Oath. This gives you life regen is applied to ES instead, so all of these life regen nodes will give you ES regen instead. And after that, the only other keystone you would take would be this node if you do want to do more damage with your Scorching Ray. I'll be taking this to the next level at 95, but it doesn't really matter that much. What's my damage with Scorching Ray? 445k right now at 8 stacks. If I take this node, it goes up to 578k. So you gain like 100k DPS, which is pretty good. Here's our total damage. RF with Conk Effect and everything up 1.17 mil, and then with that node we'll be at 578 mil. So that's like 1.6 mil total DPS. Yeah, sorry, skill tree stuff. You pick up Curse here, extra Curse, bunch of burn damage, bunch of ES, bunch of Jewel Sockets. You take all the Aura Effect nodes down here, and this Aura Effect node, that gets you your maximum amount of resistances from Purities. That's why I'm at 83, 80, 80 all res, max res, sorry. After that you just take like damage over time, ES nodes, Jewel Sockets, more ES nodes. When you're taking this separate side of the tree from the Templar start, you get more ES, or sorry, life regen, and then more ES, and then fire damage, life regen. Max fire res here to give you 1% max res, and then a bunch of life regen down here as well. And then as for jewels, there's a ton of things that scale Righteous Fire, right? As I said earlier, it's based off of your ES and life total, so go for that first, go for ES, and then you want like damage, fire damage, burning damage, damage over time. There's a lot of things. Area, I think I said area damage, I don't know, a lot of them. And then unique jewels, I'm using 2 energy from withins. This one converts this node to ES, and it converts this node to ES, so that's a total of 22% ES for me. If you have a non-legacy, it'll be 6% less than that, so you'll get, what is that, 16% ES. And this one over here is converting all of these nodes from 5 and 3, 5 and 3, 5 and 3, and 10 and 6 to 8, 8, 8, and 16%, which is really good. And I have some area stuff, flask effect stuff as well. Bunch of ES up here. It's a pretty straightforward tree for RF. As for the skill, the gear, the uniques that I'm wearing a Doriani's Catalyst. You can get a better rare than this for elemental damage, but this gives me currently 130% increased Ellie damage, it gives me attack speed, and it gives me global critical strike chance, which helps us keep our Ellie Overload procced. Pretty solid. Your chest piece, will be Shavron's Wrappings. It gives you chaos damage, does not bypass energy shield. Because we are low life, you don't want to randomly die to the fact that you have a small dot on the screen that's poison based. So I recommend that. You can use a Solaris Lorica if you're poor. Amulet, Presence of Shayula. If you can get a +1 max res or +1 curse, that would be great. Or block chance, sure. I just have a normal one. This gives you a ton of chaos res, a ton of flat ES, since it's 20% of your maximum life converted to energy shield. That's like around 300 ES, 400 ES for me. Pretty good. And you also cannot be stunned, and I guess a rarity bonus on top. Everything else is rares, so helmet you want to prioritize ES always, maximum ES you can, and then intelligence gives you more ES. Every 10 in, or sorry, every 5 in is 1% ES. Pretty good. Enchantments here, you can go for RF damage, you can go for flammability curse effect, despair curse effect. What else could you get? Enfeeble curse effect, which I'm not using. This is Spider Queen's normal helmet. Righteous Fire AoE is good as well. Boots, same thing as the helm, as much ES as possible, movement speed, resistances, stats. Get as much as you can. As for the enchant, go for regen if you've been hit recently, just translates into more survivability. Gloves, same thing, as much ES as possible, int, resist, stats. Enchantment, Commandment of Light. Commandment of Light is when you take a crit, it drops Consecrated Ground, which gives you 6% max life regen. Kind of stupid. If you take that big crit and you almost die, this will help you jump back up. It also is a melee hit because it's using your weapon, so you deal a little bit of cold damage, which procs your Ellie Equilibrium. Hooray! Everything else, what is there? Shield. Get as much ES as possible. And if you can get a shape shield with max res on it, that's great. You can also use a shape shield that looks something like this. I have different shields to use. Like if you get a high ES with ES on block, that's great. And reduced dot taking is really nice as well. Or you can just go for a really, really high ES shield with reduced dot craft on it. Up to you. Rings, I use unset rings because we need the extra sockets for our other auras. So if you can get +3 level socketed gems unsets, that's great. Go for ES, go for resist, go for stats, whatever you need really. And make sure you get a little bit of cold damage somewhere. You can get it on your ring, on your gloves, on an Abyss Jewel, it's up to you. The Abyss Jewel in your belt, you're going to want damage over time holding a shield and maximum ES. Other things you can get like Onslaught on kill, ES regen if you're moving, life regen if you're moving, stuff like that. Global crit's nice as well. I think that's it. Block chance we've been hit recently, dodge chance we've been hit recently, little stuff like that. And as for the belt, shaped belt, go for shaped belt no matter what. You can get a increased energy shield recovery rate mod here that'll give you 1.2 times your max regen. It doesn't show up in these numbers, but it is translating into 20% more regen for us, which is insane. And if you have a shaped belt, you can get % ES on it, and I have a Essence of Intelligence on this as well. It's a pretty freaking ridiculous belt. Now we go to the gem links. So your main 6-link RF, or sorry, if you have a 4-link, you go for RF, Elemental Focus, Burning Damage, and then increased AoE/Conk effect, swapping Conk for bosses. If you have a 6-link, you can throw in Arcane Surge. Arcane Surge gives the Righteous Fire a duration tag, which allows you to use things such as Swift Affliction or less duration. If you have an Elder Helmet with burning damage and Conk effect, you could use the same 6-link. You could use Arcane Surge, RF, LE Focus, Swift Affliction in the helmet, and you would still get the pseudo 6-link effect because this gives a duration tag. I don't know why it does it, I don't know why the mechanics are like that, but it works. So use it if you want. Scorching Ray, I use Scorching Ray more as a debuff, not as a real damage source. I only use it on bosses or really hard rares or uniques. So I just have Scorching Ray, Control Destruction, Efficacy, and LE Focus. Each stack of Scorching Ray gives enemies negative 3% fire res up to 8, which translates into negative 24% fire res, combined with the negative, 45% fire res from this, so that's up to negative 69%, and then negative 50 from the L Equilibrium node translates into 119 negative fire res. Pretty good. Oops, I swapped again. Other links, aura setups. I have Discipline, I have Vitality, I have Purity of Fire. Those are all on mana. And then on Blood Magic, I have Purity of Ice, Purity of Lightning, and an Enlighten level 4. This will allow you to reserve all of your life and most of your mana. And then as for my Curse setup, I have Curse on Hit, Orb of Storms with Flammability and increased crits to proc the LE Overload easier. You don't need this really. If you have a +1 Curse, Presence of Jula, you can throw in an LE Weakness here to get even more damage, or Enfeeble for even more safety, or Temp Chains, totally up to you. And then I have a random Portal Gem and a Flame Dash to go up and down ledges. And then movement skill, we have Fortify, Faster Attack, Shield Charge. Because we have that little bit of cold damage on a ring, it procs LE Equilibrium as we charge through things. And Fortify is a 20% less damage taken from hits buff, which is insanely OP. Pantheons. I always get asked about Pantheons and I always forget to talk about them. I have Soul of Solaris and take no extra damage from crits if you've taken a crit recently. So when you take a crit from anything, the next 4 seconds you take no extra crits damage, which is insanely OP to protect you from spike damage. If you have all of these, you also get 8% reduced LE damage if you haven't been hit recently, which means if you're running around dodging things correctly in a boss fight, you just take 8% less damage from your RF and everything else if it does hit you. And then you get to get 50% chance to avoid ailments for crits, sure. I also have Soul of Tukulhama for the Phys mitigation while standing still, and the ES regen, or sorry, the life regen, which translates to ES regen while standing still. That gives you an additional 300 regen at my ES level. It's not needed. You could potentially use a Soul of Growth Cool for the Phys mitigation if you take a hit recently and enemies get reduced attack speed. That's an option as well. I don't even have this one. I don't even know what this is an option. But yeah, there's a lot of different ones. You could take this for reduced dot taken. It's pretty solid as well. What else is an option? Reduce fire damage taken while moving is an option to reduce your RF burn. If you're having issues sustaining, that's great as well. But I believe that's everything. Did I miss? Oh, Flask. Flask, sorry. I almost forgot Flask. Those are important. You need a Ruby Flask, and then you need Freeze and Bleed immunity somewhere, and Movement Speed somewhere, as suffixes across these 3 non-unique flasks, right? Doesn't matter which ones, but make sure you get those 3 mods, so you're not dying to bleed, you're not frozen all the time, and yeah, you can go fast. But the Ruby Flask is important because it gives you max fire res, up to 90% max res, which means we take even less damage from our own Righteous Fire, translates into more overall life regen for us, as well as less fire damage taken from enemies. The Sulfur Flask gives you life regen and 40% increased damage. Good little buff. and then of course Quicksilver so you can go fast. Your second curse here is your Witchfire Brew. Get the highest dot roll you can, but this gives you a level 21 Despair Aura, which translates into enemies take more damage over time and have less Chaos Rise or something else. It's pretty good. And then, of course, the Rumi's Concoction for your block chance. If you don't have a Legacy Rumi's, you'll be at 25 plus about 20%, so you'll be at 45-50% block, depending on your roll and some spell block. But if you have a double Legacy, you can be block capped and have 25% spell block, which is pretty good. If you don't want to use a Rumi's, you can just use the Taste of Hate. It's even more reliable since you're not relying on the random chance to block. You just get the Fizz Mitigation all the time, and the Max Cold Res is pretty solid. But yeah, I think that's this character concluded. I'll be using this to level up to 100 until I have the rest of my gear finished for the Hall of Grandmaster submission. I have the amulet with the suffixes that I want in max block all attributes, and I have the weapon with the suffixes I want, 10% pen, spell crit, and int. I just need to get non-chaos as chaos prefix on this and block pen, and on the amulet I need to hit ES, percent ES, and 10% LE pen. And then I'll be able to throw a spider into Hall of Grandmasters once we hit level 100. But stay tuned for that. I'll keep you updated on the crafting sessions because they've been pretty fun so far. But yeah, that concludes this video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. That'll be Demi out. I almost forgot my last line. Pastement's in the description.